the scarcest commodity is time, because there are
Right.
always ways to find some money. There's always ways to, but you can't create more time, no matter how wealthy you are, right? If you consider that your use of time each day is the biggest determinant of your future.
If you're enjoying the show, hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. You'll get the latest on marketing, AI, and how to grow your business. It only takes 2 seconds and really helps the show grow. So please hit subscribe and then continue listening. Steven, so great to have you on the podcast today. It's going to be a fun episode, as we've already discussed. Maybe where do we want to start? You obviously have a background in film. We're going to talk about creativity, which is obviously super important in the AI space in modern technology. Maybe what was it about creativity that kind of drew you in? What was it about film that was just exciting to you?
I'll tell you what, I had my gateway drug was I worked at an ad agency briefly that did trailers for movies and commercials and music videos, stuff like that, right? So
Right.
the preamble to this is when I came to LA, I knew how to code. I was a junior software engineer, had a little job at IBM. I was a Watson scholar, so I could make money and that sort of stuff, right? So I came out, and when I was at USC, which is arguably one of the best film schools in the world, a lot of my friends were in film, right? So even though I kind of had other skills and I was working on journalism, working on computers, stuff like that, you go to a lot of Tuesday night movies, talk to your friends about the movies. So I happened to be around LA when film became digital. And I spoke engineer, and now I spoke creative. So I started working, this is going to sound so funny, but I started working at this company that did computer graphics and often for trailers, music videos, things like that, and then working at the agency that did these. So it was super fun. And about 20 years old, my job was I was the guy at the agency when the studios sent their rough cuts, right? We had a contract with Warner
Right.
Brothers with Buena Vista. They would send a rough cut saying, hey, in the spring we have this romantic comedy coming out. We think it should be sold sort of like this. Can you help us, right? I would
Mhm.
assign that to a writer producer. Say, hey, go off, watch this movie. The trailer's probably going to be like this. The commercial's probably going to be like this. And, give us something cool, right?
Mhm.
So the company is owned by two guys who have been doing this like 20 years, very well respected in the industry, great guys. So one of the principals' name is Jeff. And for whatever reason, Jeff never called me Steven. He always called me Stevie. He's the only person in my entire life that's ever called me Stevie. So he comes in my office one day and goes, Stevie. I'm like, yeah. He's like, so you know that guy Bart? And I'm like, Bart, who's like a runner in the vault, like delivers. Yeah, yeah. It seems nice. Where are you going with this, Jeff? He's like, Stevie, you ever give him a movie? You ever give him a trailer to write? I was like, we're talking about Bart, the guy who delivers like lunch and tapes. Like, we're talking the same Bart. He's like, yeah, yeah. I have an instinct about him. And I'm like, Jeff, your name is on the door. And you've got this huge reputation. So you want me to give him something? He's like, yeah.
Mhm.
So I found him like a Warner Brothers B title that had like a month deadline. So if he comes back after a week, he's like, I hate this. I'm going to do this. We could give it to a pro and knock it out, right? So
Mhm.
2 days later, Jeff comes to my office. He's like, Stevie, how's Bart doing? I was like, I haven't bugged him. He's had it for 2 days. I don't want to stress him out.
Mhm.
He's like, okay, fair enough. So I was like, so anything else? He's like, well, what else did you give him? And I was like, Jeff, he's never written a trailer or a commercial before. Like I gave him one movie. He goes, Stevie, let me teach you how creativity works. And I was like, okay. It's like, it's always
Get
about the
ready.
other thing, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, listen, the part of your brain that thinks that it's thinking about this is not the part that does the brilliant, like, oh my God, what if chocolate and peanut butter were a thing? He's like,
Mhm.
you've got to give him something else because if he has only one thing to focus on, you're going to get the most B obvious version of that trailer. He's going to stare with little beads of sweat
Right.
coming down his temples. He's like, you have to give him another thing to think about. So he's thinking in the back of his mind. And can I tell you, in
Mm.
20 years in film and tech, how many times I've seen Jeff proven exactly correct. As a matter of fact, there is a great
Right.
book on this called The Net and the Butterfly about the neuroscience behind this sort of creativity, where Olivia Fox Caban and Judah Pollock wrote this, saying like, how is it those inventors like come up with those novel ideas? Like, what is the process by which they let their brains float and go, oh, this is your interesting creative solution to this problem, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that is one thing that I offer, which is if you've ever had that experience of, oh, I had this cool idea when I was walking, driving, doing the dishes, showering, something where
Mm-hmm.
your executive mode network, the part that executes action, I must do dishes, I must drive, is busy, which lets
Right.
the default mode, which is kind of like the baby in the room, like think of crazy stuff. Like, the executive mode network would never look at a cell phone and be like, what does this taste like? You know? But the default mode network would be like, yeah, what if you put a cell phone in your mouth? Is that a cool ad? Like, what would that be like?
Right. Which is
So,
what babies do. They stick things
which,
in their mouth.
which is what babies do. And that's the thing. And then you end up with the ad where it's like the
Mm.
baby's holding a cell phone like it's a candy bar and you get everyone's attention because it's the purple cow. So
Right.
sorry, I offer that thought around creativity, which was handed to me by Jeff, who's still a friend, an amazing guy. But the other thing,
That's cool. It's so true. And I think it's probably something a lot of people forget about or don't think about on the regular because we're always so like in like go, 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 hustle mode, got to get stuff done,
true.
that we don't often stop and kind of just go for a walk or go and play an instrument or go and do something. And it reminded me of something Joseph Sugarman said in his copywriting book about copywriters have all these different like skills. Like the best copywriters, like they're pilots and they go hiking and they travel and they do all these like really interesting things because then they can bring those life experiences into their copywriting and into their advertising and marketing. And so it's kind of like if you don't go out and live a life, like, how are you going to have creativity?
Yeah,
Like it's not
it's so
just going to
true.
pop in one day.
Yeah, as you know, I built with some friends like a website to help you get into a flow state, help you focus. And part of what
Yep.
we do is have a Pomodoro timer that reminds you every period of time you'll get points. Like you will earn points towards your daily score by going for a walk, by doing a
Mm.
breathing meditation, by doing something that's like not staring at your computer thinking, but going, you know what? I'm going to go stretch. I'm going to go outside. And it is amazing how that jars your mind into different thoughts and you have, and you're just staring at a document trying to write something cool.
Totally. And I think I'm really glad you brought up the Pomodoro thing because I have a few thoughts around this, but it's
Ooh.
something that I tried one Pomodoro timer, which was 25 minutes, and it
Mhm.
drove me crazy because I work better in like 90-minute to 2 hour blocks before taking a
Mhm.
break because I like going in deep and all of this. And so 25-minute timer would go off and I was getting so stressed and anxious. So I've, changed that up and made it longer. But the flip side of that is because people think, oh, being in a flow state is like the ultimate goal. And while it is good and it is helpful, sometimes I've noticed I can get stuck in a task and kind of start looping and kind of be like, I should probably be interrupted right now. And maybe maybe
That's
I
very
would love to hear your
self-aware.
thoughts. Yeah, well, thank you. I only realized this the other day, but I would love to hear your thoughts on like, obviously, Pomodoro. I think most of them are 25, 30 minutes, but say for me, I would prefer like a 90-minute, 2 hour interval, just like something, because sometimes I'll forget to go to the toilet. I'll forget to eat lunch because I'm like, I just want to do this one more thing. And then that just
Yes.
turns into 10 more things. And before I know it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I should have stopped like an hour or two before and then just gone for a walk or gone outside for 5 minutes and come back
Such a
with
good
fresh
question.
eyes.
Okay, a couple things come up.
Yeah.
One thing, well, first, let me set the table for those listening at home that maybe are not sure exactly what Pomodoro is, because you and I know, but
Yes,
maybe not
please
everyone
do.
knows. Okay, so I think it was Francesco Cirillo came up with this idea around a kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato, because Pomodoro means
Hmm.
tomato in Italian, and
Right.
he came up with this rhythm of working for 25 minutes and then taking a 5 minute break and repeating that cycle a few times and then taking a longer break and keep going, right? So
Hmm.
it definitely has value in that, like you said, it encourages you on some interval to remember to say, okay, you know what, take a breath, go get some water, do something healthy to rejuvenate, right? But
Right.
I completely agree with you. As a matter of fact, in the platform I built, we started with a 25 and 5 timer. And I realized, like you, I don't actually do my best work in 25-minute chunks. For me, it's more like 55. Because 25, I was always like in the middle of an idea, like, oh, it's just coming to me. I was just getting into
Just
flow, and then
getting
it'd be like,
into it.
oh, it's
Yeah.
right.
Time to
So
stop.
we set it so you can start with that, and you can literally just click the time, type in what you want, like 55, and it will be
Hmm.
your new cycle, and you can customize that. Say, like, I want to do 45 and 15 or whatever that is, which leads me
Hmm.
to another thought related to what you're saying. And there's a good Huberman podcast on this talking about like brain glucose levels, like brain fuel, right? Which
Right.
is that there is a body of research now that your glucose level, like your brain fuel, does degrade enough at the end of 120 minutes where you do need to do something to refresh it. Like you can't just keep
Hmm.
running the engine on fumes because, like you said, you
Yeah.
begin to spiral and you don't have the idea that gets you out of the spiral, and then you just grind away in circles wearing a groove in the carpet, metaphorically
Yeah.
speaking. So that is really important. And it's also something, as we develop this platform with members, a number of people said what you said, which is like, oh, I do this thing where I'm just so focused, I'm going to do the next, do the next, do the next, that I end up in this really unproductive state, but I've used a lot of time. And
Right.
because I don't know if you follow this, but do you ever like measure your own sessions and see like how much you got done, or did you time box? Do you ever do that kind of stuff? Okay.
I do, yeah. I have a background in accounting and finance, so I'm very used to
Okay, so
tracking my
so you're all
time and
about data.
productivity.
You're all
Yeah.
about data. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I love
one
data.
one of the things we did is I wanted to see what are my own patterns, and am I getting better or worse day over day?
Hmm.
So, as in the Sukha, the platform I built, as you work, there's a live graph, so you get points as you're focused. Like you don't pick up your phone, you don't open distracting websites, and you can declare what are your distractions. You can customize it, right? So, as you
Hmm.
do this, you work, you get points, you lose points for doing things like that. You get points for finishing tasks on your time box, right? That sort of thing.
Hmm.
And the thing that was interesting to me is people were really getting into this because it's like you would get points as you worked, people would run it, run it, run it. And we realized that we didn't want to reward people, our members, for working over 2 hours because there's a point where you do need to refresh, right?
It's like,
So
what are
we,
you optimizing for? Yeah.
right, exactly. So
Hmm.
because we don't want to be just like, well, hustle for hustle's sake. We wanted to be more, hey, if you have 4 hours of work and you want to do it in 2.5 or three, like, here's a great tool. You know what I mean? Like, here's a way to do that. So we stopped giving you points after 2 hours. You can't work longer to be rewarded. You actually get more rewarded if you finish in two. And it's been
Hmm.
incredibly helpful. It's interesting to see how people have stopped doing 3 hour sessions because they're like, oh, it's 2 hours. This is when I should go do something healthy. And I love that. That's
Hmm.
ultimately, I mean, what we want to do, I believe, is we want to create something of value. We stand back and go, oh, whether it is this magnum opus, whether it is a spot, whether it is art, whether it's a business plan, whatever it is, you can look
Hmm.
back and go, this is worth the time I put into it, and I'm good at this, right? And that's a good feeling.
Hmm.
And that's ultimately, hopefully where you get. Anyway, back to you in the studio, Ellie.
Thank you, Stephen. um, no, I think it's a really interesting point that you make about, especially like productivity. Of this is something that I've kind of been playing a lot with, and we'll obviously get into the limiting factor stuff as well. But for me, it's like productivity can sometimes be mistaken for business, and so it's like,
Yes.
oh, let's just put all of these things into the calendar, and I'm going to feel really busy, and I'm going to feel like I'm making progress. But am I actually making progress? Am I getting closer to my goals? Do I
Yep.
actually know what my goals are, and what am I optimizing for? Because say in, like, for an example, in an accounting industry, you're optimizing for hours worked, not necessarily like jobs completed, because you charge
Like it's
often by the
billable.
hour. It's billable hours, right? So you're optimizing for that. But if you got the job done in 3 hours, like, there's not really an incentive to do that because you're charging the client on an hourly rate usually. So there's a different, like, you're optimizing then for hours, regardless of productivity to some degree. Whereas you might then look at, okay, I want to get these tasks done. And once they're done, it doesn't really, like, if I could get them done in 5 hours versus 10, like, the goal is to get them done,
Yep.
And so, and even another thing I was playing with lately, which I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, is instead of just optimizing for like completed tasks, optimizing for enjoyment or joy. How many times did I laugh today while I was working? How many tasks did I do that
Oh,
energized me
that's
instead of
super
draining me?
interesting.
Because obviously, like, the more we enjoy our work, the less energy it will take from us, probably the more energy it will give us, and therefore it's more productive from like an energy point of view. So there's like these non like task based or non business based objectives that we could optimize for. So I'm just, that's something I've been playing with that has really helped me in my business, because then I'm like looking forward to work and I'm like, what excites me today? Like, what do I get to do? Like, how do I want to do it? How can I have fun? You know?
That's a really great idea. You know what? That adds a new sort of vector to how I think about our process of measuring the success of your session. Because you're right, there is a bit of like, how much did you get done? Were you focused? Were you like healthy? And there's also the thing of
Yep.
like, emotionally, does this give you energy and take energy away? Do you feel drained or do you feel charged up? That's really good.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm just going to say yes to what you said, and we'll move forward.
I will credit Joe Hudson was someone who sort of triggered the idea, because he talks a lot about like enjoying work and how enjoyment of a task increases its efficiency because
Yep.
you're using less energy. And then I kind of brought in the piece of how do we optimize for that? How do we track that? What would tracking joy look like? And for me, it was like striking on a piece of paper like how many times I laughed. Every time I had a good laugh, like I'd put a line on a paper and just trying to get as many lines as possible. And so it's just like having fun, like playing around with like, how many times did I smile, or how many times did I take my 5 minute breaks, or how present was I today? Did I feel my feet on the ground? Did I really taste my coffee today? Like bringing in these kind of different measurables or targets to like help us enjoy our work and our life more.
That's
It's a
really
different
cool.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, very
So
interesting.
but yeah, so I mean, obviously, like we sort of talked about creativity, and I know we wanted to talk a bit about sort of flow states, and so
Mhm.
because obviously that piece of busyness not necessarily equaling productivity. How do you kind of help people think about what's, when I say like the limiting factor, that's a term I borrowed from a book I can't remember the name of, but it's sort of thinking about what's the limiting factor in business. Is it time? Is it money? Is it audience? And then
Mhm.
what's going to move the business forward in the biggest way? Because we might think, oh, I'm going to do, cold email outreach, or I'm going to update my website. But what's actually, I think you mentioned, like what's going to move the needle? What's going to push the business forward in a measurable, tangible way?
Yes. So, a very good point you made earlier, I'm just going to hang a lantern on it, which is busyness and productivity are not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's assume that rather than conflate those two, we say that productivity is when you're busy doing the things that are actually meaningful. Well, busyness can just be like doing anything meaningful, non meaningful, moves your life forward or not, right? Okay. So,
Right.
if what we're talking about is I want to be productive, I want to be doing meaningful work, and
Mm-hmm.
the scarcest commodity is time, because there are
Right.
always ways to find some money. There's always ways of but you can't create more time, no matter how wealthy you are, right? If you consider that your use of time each day is the biggest determinant of your future, then you turn to the many smart people who've written about like how do you use your time. Everyone has a framework, everyone has some acronym for like this is how my framework works, right? But the thing that is most meaningful to me, which you touched upon, is that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, for those who don't know, he's the Hungarian American psychologist who wrote the book called Flow. And
Right.
he named it Flow because he said, I've studied all these athletes, I've studied inventors and artists, these high performers who get in this very concentrated state where they do the work that we know them for, that has made them famous, right? Move the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they get into this state in similar ways, and there are similar characteristics to it. So he said, I think I'm going to call this book Flow because I think it's a beautiful metaphor that we could all be paddling on the water to move
Mm-hmm.
ourselves forward, but those who align their boats with the current magnifies their efforts, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
like Prometheus, could he bring down fire for the rest of us and say, like, here's kind of what I've seen, whether you want to be Michael Jordan or Picasso or, some great, copywriter or author. So the things that are interesting, well, many things are interesting here, but some things that are interesting about flow are that they generally, the flow states generally have a lack of sense of time passing. Like you're not watching the clock. And like you said, you sometimes forget to go to the bathroom or drink water or do, simple things because you get so deeply into the activity. And he said, it is common across all these experiences that there are activities that the person finds meaningful. Like you don't get into flow stapling papers or something, right? That you have skills that apply. So it's something that you can do, you're good at. You're challenged. It's not, sophomoric sort of work, but it's like you really have to think or execute with your body something that's difficult at a high level. And you have to have measurable return on your efforts, right? You can't just be throwing energy into a black box, hoping it does something. You have to have some feedback saying like, oh, in this feedback loop, I'm knowing that what I'm doing is meaningful, whether it is being able to stand back from a canvas, to reread what you're doing, to share what you're doing and get people to give you notes and, that sort of process. Or you're an athlete and, there's meaningful feedback because there's a scoreboard and there are people, applauding and things like that. So all of that said, the question is, it comes down to time. Is that a useful tool for you with what you do? And I'll tell you this. I have a ton of friends who are founders, who are, in marketing, sales, who are venture capitalists, and flow states are meaningless for them. Most of their day is interactive. I need to be talking to people. I need to be, cajoling people into doing what I want them to do. And they're not going to get into flow. They may have a great experience of that and love doing it, right? But the people for whom flow states are really like this massive accelerant are copywriters, people who are designing, people who are engineering, people who are doing knowledge work. And, as you mentioned, like it may not, while it may be helpful for accountants or attorneys, they also bill by the hour. So sometimes, it's counterproductive to be like, I'm accomplished in less time, so I earn less money for doing the same amount of work. You're like, I don't know. Maybe over time, those disciplines will stop being hourly and really you get paid by the value of what you did as opposed to like how long you sat there. I hope that adjustment comes, when
so
the robot armies take over and we all serve the matrix, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that said, and this is the end of a long spiel, I know, is if we work backwards from time and you are someone who is a knowledge worker, then flow states might be a really great unlock for you to be like, oh, I would like to finish earlier with a feeling of satisfaction, knowing I did something great, as opposed to be busy all day, but not have done the thing that moves my life forward. So there's that.
No, I think it's important. Yeah. It's something that I've been doing sort of each week is like a review of kind of what worked, what didn't, what gave me energy and what drained me. And for me, it's been kind of a good window into identifying, oh, I'm spending a lot of time here, or I don't feel good when I do this. And then I can start to like eliminate the things that are sucking my energy or sucking my time, or, like I just deleted messaging apps. Like I don't really use social media, but I deleted WhatsApp from my
Wow, hold on.
phone. I
Full
deleted
stop. You don't use social
Gmail.
media. That's remarkable.
I mean, like I upload videos to YouTube. I don't know if YouTube's
Yep.
counted as like a social media, and I sometimes post on LinkedIn, but other than that, like I really try not to use social media.
That's great.
And I just feel so much better, like in my mental health and everything. So I feel like that's like taken care of, but there's always like more little things. And so it's for me, like, I guess I'm just thinking for someone listening who's like thinking about how do you identify kind of the areas that are taking the most time, whether that's social media, whether that's, having a million tabs open. Like, do you have like recommendations, I guess, for people? Like for me, it helps to like, I guess, track everything because that's how my brain works. And then I can pinpoint, oh, this, I want to get rid of this, or I want to minimize this usage, or I have app blockers, or, whatever it is. also using like punishments and rewards for certain behaviors. If it's really hard to shift the behavior, I'll draw up a contract for myself and be like, you're not allowed to do these things. And if you do, like, this is the punishment or this is the reward. That's been really helpful for me. Obviously, I think I'm quite different to a lot of people, so maybe not super helpful, but I don't know, like what do you recommend for people to try and identify, I guess, some of the ways they're being unproductive? And then obviously, like, on the flip side would be, there's kind of a temptation, which I think you kind of touched on, of like trying to have a tool for everything. And then that can also be a kind of trap of busyness of, now I've got to track everything and now I've got to measure all these things and I have all these different tools. Something that also flows into the AI space of, now I've got all these really great tools and I'm using them and I'm feeling productive and I'm feeling like I'm doing stuff, but am I actually? What sort of how would you advise people to manage that?
Well, let me share this. I think foundationally, you have to have intention, right? So everything we're
Mm-hmm.
going to say in the next 3 or 4 minutes is based upon the assumption that you've set an intention of, I want to improve. I want to examine what I'm doing because that's the first step, and where you
Right.
focus, you can then, measure and improve. So that nothing happens without intention.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have an intention, you're like, hey, I've reached that point where I'm frustrated with where I am. I wanted to overcome my distractions, or I'm wasting time, or I get overwhelmed. Why are you overwhelmed? This sort of thing. I'll tell you a very personal sort of story, which is I looked at my frustration and it started like this. It started, hey, tomorrow morning, Ellie, you know what? I'm going to start at 9. I have this task to do and I want to get this. This is my big thing for tomorrow, right? But at
Mm-hmm.
9:15 or 9:30, I'd still be returning some emails that maybe were not high priority, but just clean out my inbox. I would be scrolling through the news just to stay up on something, like that sort of thing, and get going at like 9:30. And the result of that is at the end of the day, I'd be like, oh man, I was so busy, but I didn't get the thing done. And I'd get down on myself. I'd be like, oh, you suck, and what has happened? And I'll get up early tomorrow to finish today's work before I start tomorrow's work, which is the lie you tell yourself each day, and then just like dominoes through the week, right? Okay. So here's how I unpacked that is I looked at how I was feeling at 9 a.m. When I saw this pattern, like you love to document things, you're very data driven. I saw this pattern. I thought, at 9 a.m., what am I feeling that makes me not do what I should do? Because I intellectually understand like this hits that. Like these two things are connected. So why am I not doing this? And it was really overwhelmed. And it was kind of two things I noticed. There was either I looked at my task list and it was so long, I was like, all this needs to get done, but how are we going to get any of it done? That's sort of like paralysis of like, ugh. Or there was something at the top of the list that was just, write my book. I'm not going to make a dent in that. Why even start? So
Right.
when I looked at those two things, I thought, okay, be really helpful and we built this in the Sukha, is what if you had an assistant you could ask like, hey, help me prioritize and just choose 3 things. These are the 3 things I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as I start working, it hides everything else. I can't see the other 14 things. And
Right.
strangely, when I did this, we rolled this out throughout the platform. Our members are 77% more likely to finish all 3 things than when they could see the entire laundry list, they would do 2. Because you just get overwhelmed. And you sometimes have the temptation to jump around and work on a bunch of things, and then you don't really get anything done. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if there's something in there that's huge, you have the opportunity for the smart assistant to say like, hey, write your book as a noble goal, but maybe the task today is, do you want to just outline chapter 3? I know that's where you are. Like, get that done, right?
Yeah.
And then you can do it. And you can time box and say, that should take me 30 minutes or whatever. So those sort of things really come from intention. I want to look at what I'm doing and become better at this. Okay, what am I doing? How am I feeling? Procrastination, especially with our membership, is a huge one. Just like, how do I get that first step out of the house? Like the journey of the 1,000 miles, blah, blah,
The
blah.
first win. Yeah.
Exactly. And make that as easy as possible. Have it
Mm.
just a simple like way to use music when you work.
I do. Yes. A
What
lot.
kind of
Yeah.
music?
A whole mix. Sometimes electronic music, sometimes classical, sometimes heavy metal, sometimes pop. Like, just it depends on my day and on my
Oh,
mood.
so interesting. Yeah.
Unless I'm Unless I'm like copywriting, then I often have to have silence just because trying to write words when I'm listening to words can be a bit confusing. Um, but yeah, and then other times, like if I feel like I'm at capacity, I'm like, it's just a silence day today. So it really can fluctuate. But I
There
do
you
use
go.
a lot of music when I work. Yeah. I find it
That
really
is very
helpful. Yeah.
cool. That is awesome that you were aware of that. It was something we looked at a lot when we were building out, the Sukha platform. Is there's a bunch of research that says for most people, music that is 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, ambient, non-vocal melodic sort of music helps you fall into that deep state. Now we all have the friend that listens to some crazy like metal or rap or something, gets in there, or show tunes. I
Yeah.
don't know, no judgments, but um, those are kind of outliers, and it's super helpful to have a lot of these things packaged together. That's kind of our goal. Is like, how do you package together the Pomodoro timer, music that's designed for this, a task list that's manageable, and fun community. And it really does, in my mind, come down to this: is that the old maxim or the truism about you are the people with whom you surround yourself. Like if you look at your closest friends, you're kind of a
Absolutely.
composite of them, right?
And the
And
probably media types that you consume as well, if they're influencers or different
so
YouTubers or
true.
whoever.
So
Yeah.
true, right? So this was something when we were, working on the platform. I was thinking like, how do you tie in that idea of like, there are all these people here who are productivity minded and cool people, but they don't get a sense of each other. There's not a community aspect. So I thought, what if there were like a group chat? What if there's a way to like get these people together and say, oh, you see each other, but maybe it's going to be super distracting, right? Maybe that's a horrible idea. So I talked to a couple of members about it. And this one woman I talked to, she's still a member. I've seen her in there. I pitched her this. I was like, what do you think? Distracting, helpful? And she said to me this. She said, Steven, I can go down to the Nike store and buy a pair of shoes. They will sell me a left shoe and right shoe. I put them on my feet. I go run. They work. Done. But there's a reason why 100 million people belong to the Nike Run Club. Because we run together, you run further, you run faster. The days you need someone to pick you up, they're there. The days you pick someone else up, you're there. Like these are important concepts around like the people who surround you, the energy that surrounds you. So to be in a flow state alone is a fantastic thing. And maybe if you're copywriting and you just want to be, solo, but there are other days when it's like, it's nice being around people who are, posting what they're working on and finishing things and celebrating each other and dropping emoji on when they finish, when their friends finishes something. And I find that now my favorite part of our platform is just that sense of like, oh, hey, there are other people here. So I guess it ties into the idea like flow is not really a single player game unless you want it to be. Like it is something where your focus is reduced down to what you're doing, but there's also an energy of other people. Like there's a reason why there are co-working spaces, and virtual
Right.
co-working groups
And
online
masterminds. Yeah.
and masterminds. Exactly. And all that. So anyway, um, I encourage people to take advantage of the energy of other people and to share into that energy.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up. I made a few notes because I was like, oh, I want to cover these things. But yeah, it's interesting. There's a whole thing. I haven't actually done it myself, but co-working in a group on Zoom where like nobody chats and everybody's just got the camera on and everybody's just working together. And I was like, that's such an interesting idea. And it's really popular among some people because they like find that they work better when there's people around. And I was
Right.
like, that's really interesting. And I also like kind of what you said about cheering each other on and being part of a community or part of a group. And that's something that I get so much value from personally. And, even just like the podcast, for instance, is one example of helping me think outside the box because we all think in different ways. Like I'm a very data oriented person, but
Yes.
then
Clearly.
other people have, yeah, surprise. But then other people have like different minds and different perspectives. And I've been meeting one-on-one with this guy. We do like a weekly Zoom call, just like back and forth, kind of almost like a coaching swap. And it's really helpful because we are really different people. And so we ask each other different questions and it really helps the brain look at things differently, which obviously ties back to productivity. Because if you can find a better way of doing something that uses less effort or that takes less time, then like that's obviously a win. And it just, I don't know what you said, reminded me of that quote. If you want to go far, if you want to go
The African
fast, go
proverb.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you want to go far, go with like a team.
Go together.
And
Yeah.
like entrepreneurship, like it's such a solo, isolating journey. And so I think, if we can build a team, if we can join a community where we're all cheering each other on and like swapping notes, like I just think like you'll be much more likely to stick it out in business, because it can be so difficult at times. So I think that's really cool that you mentioned that
I
community
completely
piece.
agree with
Yeah.
you. And I know many of the helpful episodes you've created are very specific and prescriptive around, conversions and marketing and ad platforms and things like that. I hope this has been a helpful episode about how to do those things. Like, how do you create in your day the space to apply all those things well? And whether
Or
it's
choose
specifically
which
like,
ones resonate. Yeah.
completely true. Like, I mean, you've gotten so many very prescriptive, smart episodes. I hope this one is helpful to people who are like, okay, so I need to manage my day so that I can apply these techniques I've learned in all the other episodes.
Yeah, and take action. I think that, yeah,
Yeah,
it's something someone mentioned yesterday was like, yeah, it's all well and good to like have all the information from AI tools about what to do, but then you actually have to go and do it,
right.
It can't do
Exactly.
it for you.
Until the
Yeah.
robot overlords come and enslave us.
Until then, for
Right.
now.
Right. Until December, let's say.
Yeah. For today and the future TBC.
I know. This has been super fun.
Cool.
Thank you for having me.
Super fun. No worries, no worries. And for people who want to say know more about you and connect with you online, obviously you have your productivity app. Where
Yep.
can they find out more?
Oh, easiest thing is if I have said anything that makes someone go, oh, I want to read that book that he mentioned or whatever, happy if they email me. My email address is very public. It's Steven, Steven, at Sukha, Sukha.co for company, the Sukha company. Drop me an email. I reply to all my emails in 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. And if you're like, oh, tell me more about, Mihai or, Cal Newport or whomever, right? Happy to drop you a link. It won't be a long response, but it'll be what you ask for. And then if there's anyone who's looking for more, opportunity to get into a flow state, to focus, to beat distractions, finish their day earlier, our platform is free for 7 days. It's no credit card. You can try it out. If you love it, sign up, which is also at thesukha, thesukha.co. And think of something you need to accomplish that takes like half an hour, because you can't get into a flow state in like 5 minutes. It'll just be like, oh, there's a music app, But get in there, look at the tools, play with it. And try it for 7 days. Absolutely free. No, if you don't cancel, we'll bill you. We don't even ask for a credit card.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great chat. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, guys.